Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yolanda Lam, Assistant Researcher of our Hong Kong Foundation and your MC this morning. On behalf of our Hong Kong Foundation, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all for joining our Insight Forum today. Our topic today is Hong Kong Way Forward, the future of Hong Kong as a global talent hub. And we are honored to have Mr. Bernard Chan, Executive Vice Chairman of our Hong Kong Foundation and Chairman and President of Asia Financial Holdings Limited, to speak to us on this highly important subject. Now, may I first invite Mrs. Eva Chang, President of our Hong Kong Foundation, to give us a welcome remark. Mrs. Chang, please.
Mr. Bernard Chan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take off my mask because I'm safely distanced from all of you. And isn't it great to be together again? This is the third time we do an Insight Forum in the last few months. I wonder how many of you have been to the first two. Can I have a show of hands, those of you who have been with us for two of the three? Well, okay. That's like a quarter. That's not bad at all. But anyway, thanks for sparing your very valuable time to be with us this morning. Now, as the saying goes, Hong Kong has opened a new chapter, 新篇章啦, and all of us, we call ourselves Hong Kongers. I believe we will not be just witnesses in the new era, but also active players. And so, as masters of our own destiny and leaders of the community, I think we need to know where exactly we want to go and for what purpose. So this is why our Hong Kong Foundation, as a leading think and do tank in Hong Kong, has organized a series of 3 forums, as I just mentioned, to discuss way forward. And we have already done 2. The first one was on Hong Kong's future as a financial center. And the second one is on our future as an innovation and technology center. Of course, today, our forum is the third one, and the final in the series, and the theme that we have picked is the future of Hong Kong as a global talent hub. Well, these 3 dimensions we picked are all significant in their own ways because they create wealth and high-end jobs and also hopes and opportunities for all in the community. In brief, I believe they are keys to Hong Kong's revival, progress, and prosperity. Well, today on talents. Yes, Hong Kong people are very talented in many different ways. And for many decades in the past, I think Hong Kong has really lived up to the description that we have smart people and in a smart place. 人傑地靈. We always say Hong Kong 人傑地靈嘅地方. But then we all know also that the world is changing very fast. And while Hong Kong has talents, but many, many other big cities that want to rival our position also have a lot of talents. So what we really believe is that Hong Kong needs not just having talents, but we need to have a critical mass of talents and to have all these talents call Hong Kong home. Well, to be successful, to get to that kind of a stage or state, Hong Kong, I believe, must be an active, actually aggressive player in the global competition for talents. So that's why we're really happy and glad to see that the Chief Executive, Mr. John Lee, in his policy address last week, he had started to move Hong Kong from just talking about talents to taking more robust actions or concrete steps to create a talent-friendly city. And I think that direction gives us, everybody in this room, much food for thoughts and hope for the future. And so I believe it is very timely, very relevant for us to gather here today to take a deeper dive into the subject of how Hong Kong can become a global talent hub. We're very grateful to Mr. Bernard Chan for agreeing to give the keynote speech, and also to Dr. Aaron Harilala, to Ms. Diana Caesar, Dr. Daisy Wang for agreeing to share their insights in a panel that's going to be moderated by Dr. Stephen Wong. And last but not the least, please allow me to also take this opportunity to thank profusely Mr. Robert Wong and Hong Kong Land for giving our Hong Kong Foundation the privilege to use this great venue and be our sponsor for the whole Insight Forum series. And now, without further ado, may I pass the stage to our keynote speaker, who needs no elaborate introduction, the Executive Vice Chairman of our Hong Kong Foundation, Mr. Bernard Chan, please.
I think I have to pass. Eva, Eva, you might have to come back up again. You have to come up. I have to give you back this. Very important part. We're not quite there yet, so sorry to put you on the spotlight. You're only allowed to take off your masks up here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you, Robert, for this wonderful venue we can use here to share this very important topic that Eva alluded to. Today, I am very privileged by the presence of our many eminent speakers and participants. Now, these days, policymakers, businesses, and the public have been all talking about one single theme, and that is a severe shortage of talent. Now, make no mistake that we are in a war for talent. Countries and regions all around the world have been making unprecedented efforts to groom and attract talents, and we cannot risk falling behind. Now, the importance of talent attractions cannot be overstated. As the World Economic Forum suggests, over 70% of the software engineers in Silicon Valley are foreign-born. The US, the UK, Canada, Australia have collectively attracted nearly 75% of all the highly skilled immigrants globally, contributing to their past socioeconomic successes. A study by the Harvard Business Review also shows that companies with above average diversity of talent, demographic-wise, have about 19% higher innovation revenues. Now, this is exactly why the quest for talent is so important. A critical mass of talent forms an ecosystem in which they interact, which drives growth and attracts even more talent to pursue their opportunities and success. Now, Hong Kong has always been a global talent hub. Talent have always played a very pivotal role in Hong Kong's development and prosperity. Now, decades ago, after the World War II, it was the Chinese entrepreneurs with their labor, expertise, and foreign capital that turned Hong Kong into a manufacturing center. Now, partly benefiting from regional geopolitics at the time, it was, again, an influx of the immigrants from all over the world that transformed Hong Kong into an international financial center. Now, we find ourselves in a bottleneck of economic growth. Talent is both the way to achieve the breakthroughs for traditional industries such as finance, logistics, trade, and to develop emerging industries such as technology, innovation, and art. Traditional sectors such as finance relies on new talent and skills to develop new growth engines such as fintech, blockchains, and even ESG. New industries find themselves in a severe recruitment shortage. A recruitment supply of talent is ultimately needed to enhance our city's competitiveness and fulfill Hong Kong's purpose in the China's 14 5-year plan. So recently, there is one question that people have been asking. They ask me a lot. Is Hong Kong written off? Are we no longer the place that talent is so eager to come to develop their careers and achieve success. Now, despite the many challenges that we face, I do not believe so. Indeed, Hong Kong's many advantages remain the terms of talent attraction. Hong Kong remains a vibrant and livable city for people from all over the world. But now let's take a moment to imagine that you are a foreign individual looking to relocate. Now, what would you consider before you make that decision? Having a low and simple tax rate and a business-friendly environment certainly helps. Hong Kong is still ranked first in economic freedom with no foreign ownership restrictions. For those with children, Hong Kong's education system is ranked fourth globally in the OECD's latest program of international student assessment, PISA, with a variety of education options. Elderlies are well taken care of by our outstanding medical services. But then, of course, opportunity-wise, Hong Kong has 5 universities that make into the global top 100 of the latest QS World Ranking, University Ranking, being the top city with the most entries. It has always been an international financial center and a hotspot for IPOs. It remains a land of opportunities with its proximity to neighboring economies, especially as a gateway to the rest of China. Now, of course, we have to be honest. We must acknowledge that the social unrest and the COVID-19 has brought about reputational and business challenges. And to follow that, a narrative that Hong Kong is no longer the pearl of the Orient it once was. In the 2021 IMD World Talent Rankings, despite ranking first in Asia, from the breakdown, we see Hong Kong's appeal to foreign talent has dropped over the years from 5th in 2016 to 26th in 2021. And in the meantime, we also recorded a year-on-year net outflow of 95,000 people in mid-2022. Now, mind you, most people can't come in, so it's really net outflow. So this is the 3rd consecutive year of net population outflow, where Hong Kong has a collective outflow of around 200,000 people. Yet we should not have our eyes on these recent events, as these issues is at a state, in fact, more structural problem. We have witnessed a lack of talent to drive our next wave of economic growth in the last decade, leading to the bottleneck I have just mentioned. The forces of development have become more complex. The quest for talent are even more so. The reasons are manifold. Hong Kong's development itself has become incremental as the economy matures, while global and regional competition has become more fierce, and late developing countries and regions have undergone advanced modernization lately. Not only do they present immense opportunities to talent around the world, but the exceptionally attractive industry policies offered by some have made us even more disadvantageous, while mainland China is an obvious example. The 21st century also marks greater resource mobility, including ease of talent flow, and also the rise of emerging industries that have lower geographic stickiness, such as the art and tech, when compared to manufacturing and logistics, leading to talent settling in places with huge domestic markets. So indeed, we are in a war for talent. Hong Kong called for talent to embark on its current development, as suggested by the government in its own manpower survey and projection released in 2019, while forecasted a short shortage of around 170,000 workers by 2027. Hong Kong also called for talent to develop its new industries and bring it to new heights. Now, all the above tell us that we can no longer rely on traditional advantages and methods. So while we hope that after the reopening of COVID, talent would return, but hope is not enough. We still need to aggressive talent policies and measures. We will not naturally get out of the interlocking puzzle between industry and talent. We need imminent and innovative interventional policies. Now, to build a talent hub means two things. Firstly, to be able to recruit pool of global talent. Secondly, also to groom our local talent. The question is, are we doing enough? Now, our education system is not yet fully equipped to supply the future-proof talent. With the talent and skills demanded brought by Hong Kong's technological development and reindustrialization, we face an increasing skills mismatch between learners and employers of expectations. 58% of the business identified talent shortage as a key obstacle to their upgrade and transformation plans, while every 3 in 4 employers find it difficult to employ staff with the right skills. Now, we are also not doing enough to reskill and upskill talent with a low participation rate in continuing education. With an inadequate local supply, especially for the new industries, it brings a need to attract top-notch talent from all over the world. However, let's not forget that Asia World City has been cut off from the international community for over 2 years, with a more than 50% decline in the number of total talent inflow in our city, via our various employment and other visa schemes for foreigners. The unknown regarding mass testing and quarantine facilities have been driving businesses and talent away, temporarily or permanently. Now, our city has not been aggressive enough in courting skilled labor via our visa schemes, as there exists a huge mismatch between the eligibilities and the benefits of such schemes. Both Singapore, now we use Singapore a lot, but let's just use Singapore. Singapore and the UK have launched new schemes and offer pre-employment visas to attract top-notch talent. Singapore new Overseas Networks and Expertise, the ONE Pass, targets talent earning top salaries, while the UK Global Talent Visa hopes to attract high-potential university graduates with no strings attached. Now, of course, it is not about the number of schemes, but it is about the quality and the attractiveness. The Hong Kong's talent attraction scheme, however, are not quick enough in terms of processing times, not broad enough in terms of the talent categories, and not generous enough in terms of support. Now, although optimization measures have been in place for the quality migrant admission scheme, and has indeed led to a rising number of talents admitted, but further improvements are still needed. In fact, the government has introduced a streamlined and more targeted scheme named the Technology Talent Admission Scheme 4 years ago. Yet, it still comes with strict requirements of talent spanning education background to employment contracts, alongside other stuff such as the mandatory local hiring requirements for tech companies. In turn, it only offers a slightly advanced review. Now, all this has hampered its attractiveness, with just over 200 applications over the few years after its introduction. Well, we got to change. Now, a survey conducted by the Google in 2019 revealed that 64% of corporations in Hong Kong said that staff with STEM qualifications are the hardest to find. No surprise. The shortage is well established. But are we doing enough to fill the gap? Now, I have a vested interest here because, I don't have enough for my own company too. I'm sure the same with everyone in the room. Now, similarly, as our universities have only set aside 20% of places for non-local students, can we grant these students a longer period of stay beyond the current 12 months in town upon their graduations under the immigration's arrangement for non-local graduates scheme? Can graduates of the mainland branches of universities be included in this scheme? Or, unless, can we increase the percentage of university places reserved for mainland students? Now, all this would fill Hong Kong with a stronger and more sustainable young workforce and help propel our economic reform. Now, for talent to come to and remain in Hong Kong, they need two things. First, a livable environment and the potential to make their businesses and careers to the next level. So on this note, despite some of the advantages mentioned, let's not forget Hong Kong is known as a city with the least affordable housing in terms of price-to-income ratios. So for the expats, one of the first challenges would be finding an affordable nano apartment in the city. Now, our Hong Kong Foundation did a survey with talent originally from the mainland and found that over 40% said they are likely to leave Hong Kong for lifestyle reasons. So innovative solutions must be developed to make housing more affordable and for the incomers, and so that they can come live with dignity with the families in the long run. Now, we can learn from our neighboring cities, such as Shenzhen, where housing and other economic and living benefits are offered to technology talent across all kinds of talent nurture and for regional and international endeavors. Locally, we must step up efforts to cultivate new talent across all industries. Young people need to be able to explore diverse career pathways early on in their education with close partnership with the business community. Our education is too focused on students' ability to take exam. Now, we need fresh talent to enter the workplace with the relevant skills to build our future industries. Then we need to rethink the way we educate our next generation. By the way, I'm not blaming our educators. It's not the fault of our educator. Partly to be blamed is we as parents. So please get this right. I'm not blaming the educators, right? It's we as a society need to be blamed. And our university should also offer double degrees in technology and business or other professional services to train multi-skilled talents to fill the market gap. Working professionals need to be provided with the resources and the opportunities to upskill and reskill. In Hong Kong, only 20% of our adults take part in continuing educations compared to Singapore's 49%. Now, I have a former ED of VTCs here, so I hope my numbers are correct. Or my colleagues' numbers are correct. Our workforce can only stay competitive by continuously picking up new skills required to grow our blossoming industries. Now, regionally, we should leverage our regional proximity to the Greater Bay Area and beyond to attract ambitious regional talent looking to expand their horizon. Mainland China is recently showing an oversupply of graduates seeking jobs, especially for the tech industries, which could prove to be an opportunity for us. This year, the unemployment rate of these group of people aged from 16 to 24 in China reached almost 20%, while a study on Graduate Outlook revealed that although the number of job applicants rose by 75%, the number of vacancies actually decreased by 8%. Now, we can seek to attract some of these talents in critical industries in Hong Kong, for example, by leveraging the mainland campuses of the Hong Kong universities in order to absorb this talent group to cross the border. Now, to further increase our talent appeal, we should build a regional ecosystem of ease cross-border applications spanning visas and taxations alongside mutual recognitions of qualification, therefore removing obstacles that talent currently must jump through to get their licenses or certificates recognized across the border. Several of such agreements have already been formed under the aegis of CEPA, and it is crucial that we take more steps in this direction. Internationally, we need to better promote ourselves as a gateway for international R&D talent to unlock the incredible potentials of Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. Our immigration schemes have to be optimized, ensuring that the eligibilities and benefits are on par with each other. Meanwhile, it is utmost importance for Hong Kong to attract the best talent that can develop new industries, even from scratch, to settle in. This should be done through talent schemes which far transcend immigration schemes and living subsidies. Can we put forward a scheme targeted at attracting industry key players, coupling with the, I'm sure you're all aware, we have the so-called the Global STEM Professorship Scheme that laid out by the previous government? Can we join hands with Shenzhen to attract top-notch talent to work in both cities through co-appointment arrangement, and thereby leveraging on our strong universities and international research environment alongside with the relatively developed tech industry in the mainland? All these initiatives not only will increase the attractiveness of our talent scheme, but facilitate better attraction of the right talent. For example, translational scientists that commercialize university findings coupled with ease cross-border arrangement. Now, don't get me wrong, the construction of a livable environment concern far beyond monetary and ancillary support offered by all these schemes and subsidies. There is a global trend of creating a so-called live, work, play communities which offer higher quality life for talent. Cities with vibrant creative and artistic atmosphere are appealing to the talents and professionals, just as how London and Yokohama have become so well known for their abundant cultural facilities spanning galleries, museums, and art space. So it is therefore beyond building more affordable and spatial housing and workplaces, but transforming commuter towns and commercial centers into communities with primary healthcare, quality education, and cultural experience. At this critical juncture, the government, businesses, and every one of us has a role to play, and it's important telling the story, a story of Hong Kong, so that we can continue to attract and retain talent. Hong Kong continues to be a place for unlimited opportunities for talent and businesses, and the world needs to know that. Hong Kong future's development hinges on plugging in the brain drain and attracting the best and the brightest in the world to come to our home, Hong Kong. It is time to review our city's talent strategy, make timely enhancement in order to solidify Hong Kong's status as a talent hub and to make Hong Kong to new heights. Now, I'm sure I'm preaching those who already agree everything I said. The question now is, how are we going to tell our story to the world? Now, of course, provided we are open to the world. So it is important, I think, as soon as COVID is over, that we are ready. We are ready to tell the world, we want you. I think we've been too complacent for too many years because we have been so good, so we don't feel the need to go and tell people to come. Time has changed. Now it's time for us to tell the world we are ready, and we welcome them to come. And of course, policies and other stuff needs to be enhanced to remain attractive, because there are many competitors out there. Talents are needed everywhere these days. So I look forward to our panels because each of them will tell us their own stories, how challenging in each of their industries to attract talent, and how much more Hong Kong can do in order to stay competitive. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your informative and encouraging speech. Please take a seat. Now, after Mr. Bernard Chan's keynote speech, it is now time for the panel discussion. Today, we are honored to have 3 distinguished guests from different walks of life to join us in person to share their thoughts and experiences in a panel discussion with Mr. Chan. The panel discussion will be approximately 40 minutes, followed by a 20-minute Q&A session where we will open the floor for questions. On-site guests and media friends are more than welcome to raise questions then. We have with us today Dr. Aaron Harilela, Chairman and CEO of Harilela Hotels Limited, who is also our Hong Kong Foundation's Special Counselor. We are also joined by Ms. Diana Caesar, Executive Director and Chief Executive of Hang Seng Bank Limited, as well as Dr. Daisy Wang, Deputy Director of Curatorial and Programming at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Now, Mr. Chan, please join us again on stage, and may I invite all of our guests onto the stage as well. Last but not least, may I invite our panel moderator, Dr. Stephen Wong, Senior Vice President and Executive Director of Public Policy Institute of our Hong Kong Foundation, to come to the stage. Dr. Wong, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Bernard, for the wonderful speech, and also welcome our distinguished panelists. So one thing that I think the way I moderate this session is I will invite each of the panelists to share some of your thoughts, and then I will obviously open up for questions from the floor, and then and also some media questions as well. So, first of all, I got to mention obviously with the policy address last week. So there are a number of key initiatives that the CE has sort of laid out, and obviously there's always room for improvement probably, but I think that's also a context of our discussion today, as in the government listens and hears and try to address the problem, so would love to get your feedback on that as well. But my first question to sort of all of you, aside from just giving your general thoughts, is that from your industry, can you share particularly the challenge that you face in the past couple of years in terms of brain drain and in terms of the measures that in your specific industry that it's just sort of the open general question for all of you. So maybe I invite Daisy to share with us first.
Thank you, Stephen. It's such a wonderful opportunity for us to share with you what we have to deal with in the past few years. Number one, I'm a living example of talents coming from elsewhere and come to Hong Kong. I came in July 2019 in the midst of everything.
Sorry, I have to tell the truth.
You have to, yes.
Because I recruited Daisy. I was so worried that she's not going to come. So I'm glad you came.
Thank you. You obviously lead by example. In fact, also, I never told you this. I actually watched a CNN video interviewing you about Hong Kong before I applied for this job. So thank you for encouragement.
I was a very good salesman, right? Obviously.
I think that we definitely have a lot of challenges. I work at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. I came here with a mission that is to open this museum in exactly 3 years. And we did that. And actually, we opened earlier than that.
Yeah,
So I think that coming to Hong Kong for me is an obvious choice because I love the speed. It's not just Hong Kong speed, not China's speed. It's Hong Kong Palace Museum speed. We create speed. And I love challenges. And this is the place for challenges, for sure. And also, I love the opportunity. I came here with an endowed position, so I had a very comfortable, very secure job in the United States, in the top-tier museum. But it's those things combined that really attract a lot of talents coming to Hong Kong. However, there are a lot of challenges. I think that when I live in New York, people always say, oh, yes, you stay in the city, but you often go out often. But don't forget you have to come back, right? So I think the travel has been very, very tough. My hometown is in mainland China, in Hunan province. So one of the things I really love is that I could, over the weekend, I could take a high-speed train and go to Shenzhen and go to Hunan, but it has been so difficult. I also have a home in the United States. So I used all my vacation days to go to the United States and come back for the 21-day quarantine. I spent 42 days quarantine in a hotel in Hong Kong. And I have no time because I have to hop on an airplane and then come back within 48 hours. It's because it's very difficult to get a hotel, number one. You first book a hotel, and then you look at your air tickets, right? Usually you don't get enough time. So that is the hardship we have to face. And a lot of my colleagues coming from all over the places, mainland China, difficult. You also have to be quarantined in mainland China, and you come back and be quarantined again. So it's a lot of challenges, but I would also say that Hong Kong is a wonderful place to be, is because I have the best staff, the hardest working staff here, very determined, a lot of OTs, I got a lot of staff complain, but in any case, they did it. And I also think that opportunities here are unique. I came from a curatorial position. I wasn't chief curator, I wasn't deputy director, I wasn't in the management. However, Hong Kong gave me opportunity. Bernie, you gave me opportunity to jump the ladder. So I think it's that kind of a special place. I think even, I went through a lot of this kind of difficulties. Now, if you say, well, looking back, if we offer the job, would you come? I will. I will pack my 2 suitcases and come tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Daisy?
Yes,
Diana?
thank you, Stephen. I think for the financial sector, we've always been experiencing this tug of war for talent. It's not anything new. Now, granted the fact that travel restrictions, border restrictions have made it a bit challenging and exacerbated that pain in very many ways. But I always like to put things in perspective. Even back in 2021, and you and I always converse on this topic, the financial sector employed over 200,000 staff members. We are still a key contributor to Hong Kong's GDP at 22%. Well, to be fair, some of the other industries experience some challenges, but still that indicates the strength of the financial sector in Hong Kong. So sometimes we tend to be a bit harsh on ourselves to say, we're not actually doing too well. I think we need to recognize the challenges, and this is really a time for us to recognize the challenges, but also think of how we position ourselves going forward. The tug of war for talents, I think there are twofold. Because we are a international financial center, we always need inflow of talents. We need to connect with external markets. We need to connect with China. Both ways were a bit tough over the last few years. Here in Hong Kong, we need to continuously groom our own talents. We need to develop our next generation. But let's not forget to future skills our prevailing staff force. I think that's important. We're all going through a transition. I'm learning something new every day. I have 2 colleagues here, and they're actually teaching me about fintech and new development and ESG every day. So I think the reality is there is a challenge, there is a drain in very many ways, but also that's probably because of the netting off of the effect. You don't get as many coming back in, and we have a shortage of pipeline here. But let's focus on how we can move forward in terms of future scaling our colleagues. Those of us who actually have been in the industry for long, how do we then equip ourselves with the skills to operate and navigate forward, and at the same time enable us to have conversations, meaningful conversations with the younger generations? I certainly wouldn't want them to think I'm very old-fashioned, I don't know how to talk to them. So in that sense, I think it's both ways. We then give them a bit of confidence, inject a bit of confidence, inject a bit of energy into their desire to want to be a part of the industry. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Thank you, Diana. Aaron?
Thank you, Stephen. So my industry is the hotel industry, and the travel industry all around the world has suffered quite greatly. With border closures, quarantine in Hong Kong has been a disaster for us. I was reading a LinkedIn post one time, and somebody said, well, this quarantine hotels are only beneficial to the hotel owners, and I guarantee you, no hotel owner has made any money out of quarantining. It's been a very difficult procedure. But in my industry, we've seen a mass outflow of talent. I've lost 2 general managers and a financial controller within this period, and trying to attract that same caliber or level of talent, a general manager or a financial controller, has been a mammoth task. The only reason we found somebody was one of the financial controller was Hong Kong based. We could not look internationally. And for one of the general managers, his wife was from Hong Kong. He's Dutch, lived in Hong Kong 30 years. But to get anybody from the outside is just impossible. But, and the reason I would say is that we need to take a holistic view of what the lifestyle of talented people, talented individuals looks like. If somebody comes in with children, they need to know that they can educate their children, and not at the drop of a hat, the classes are going to go to half day, or schools are going to close, or we're back to Zoom lessons. And until that transparency and that that information is given and known, Hong Kong will not be the smartest city in Asia or the smartest city in the world. We've lived on a reputation of being the smartest city in Asia, if not the world. And we've lost, I think we need to be truthful about this, we've lost that reputation because we have not been scientifically based or smart. I sat down and the first thing I did was take off my mask. I think the fear and the stigma that we've been facing about COVID, where the rest of the world has not been facing, is stifling us, and the mind boggles sometimes when I'm driving my children to school. I have very young children, and you see a mother, the father, and a 2-year-old child in their own car wearing masks. And do they wear them at home? Right, so the mind boggles. So the stigma, I think we need to get away from, and until we can have a holistic idea of a life, a good quality life that you can live in Hong Kong, it's going to be very difficult in my industry, certainly, to attract any talent.
Well, I'm going to put my mask on until after the stigma is gone. So, Bernard.
Yeah, you are an electrical member. You better put your mask on. Let's put COVID aside, right? Because one way or the other, COVID will end. So assuming that will happen, we still have a problem, right? We still have a problem. It's not the first time we talk about talent issue. It's been there. The issue has been there for years. But I think COVID, all the issues you just raised obviously exacerbate, right? Front and center now. But years, we know, everyone knows there's a mismatch in skill set, right? Local, let's not talk about incoming outside talent, just even locally. There's always been a mismatch. And, but what can we do? It's not even a policy issue, right? It's us, again, I mentioned when I mentioned about education, it's not a policy issue. It's how we parents see it, right? Can you imagine that you're not getting a college degree because for decades we've been told getting a college degree you get a good job. I'm not so sure about that anymore, right? In fact, you look at Germany. I cite Germany because I've been told Germany that it's perfectly fine to get a good vocational jobs, the skill set. But how are you going to change that perception? Because every parent will want the child to get that college degree. But I seriously question that, again, whether is that the aim, the end that we look to? So that's the first thing, is the mismatch. Everyone in the industry tells you there's a mismatch, but what can we do about it? Number one, right? Second, then of course, is the outside talents that are coming in. For years, I say this because many of you know my family backgrounds. ASEAN, we have many businesses in ASEAN. So I've been telling the authority and even policymakers that we got to be a little bit more competitive because we've been too complacent. Because we kept saying, we are already number one here, number one there. So yeah, I don't worry about them, right? So we don't take it serious about this threat. I think they're right in a sense because we are still very good. So we don't need to offer any special scheme here, special scheme there. We don't need to do all these cheapskate stuff to try to attract people. I'm so glad in the current policy, the latest policy address. If you were to ask me, many people ask me, is that good enough?
Yeah,
whatever that we offer is good enough. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know whether they're good enough. We have to ask our participant here whether they're good enough. But what I do know, and I really want to applaud the government, is sending that signal. I alluded my speech. For the first time, you know how much coverage we have, right?
Yeah.
To come out and say, we need talent. And I think that's already is a big shift. If we can send that message to the rest of the world, telling that Hong Kong want good people to come, I think that's good enough already. Now, whether they're attractive, people ask me whether the 15% rebate, this and that. I mean, honestly, I don't know. But the fact that we're sending one message to the world, that is, we need good people to come, that I think is already for a change, because we never do that in the past. Well, in the past, we always say, we are so good. You want, you come. That's the kind of attitude. Today, we send a strong message.
Yeah, no, if I can chime in, I think they clearly send the signal by shifting this from attracting talent is no more a immigration department bureaucratic procedure to a active search and scout and also build this ecosystem around it when they actually search for strategic industries as well. So I agree with you on that. But actually, because you bring up this local talent issue, maybe if I can ask a stupid question, really, given the opportunities we still have, for example, Aaron bring up an interesting case where your expat is gone, but you hire a local guy that actually can step up. So maybe Bernard, I mean, can we look at it from a brighter side of the? We need obviously international talents. But in this interim period, isn't that a golden opportunity for our local talents as well to step up, to fill up some of the spaces that is left by the...
I should really let our guest speakers here to chip in more, but maybe I'll turn to Daisy.
Yeah.
I asked the question first. I think traditionally, right, we look at, the finance and hospitality and so on, right? But I think that young children today, I shouldn't say children, the young generation today, they don't necessarily just look for your same old professions. Like arts and culture is definitely one. I honestly believe that is the up and coming one, right? Because there's so much to, but we never had that before. But we now have such a facility institution. Let me turn to Daisy.
Sure. Daisy.
When you engage with our young recruits, what are their aspirations? Do they see? Because I think it's important that we give hope, right, to our generation, whatever jobs they want, right? But I think the parents want something else. Because when I met recently a father, I don't know this person before. He came up to me because he knew that I was involved in Palace and Amplas. He came up to me and said, "Oh, my son graduated from university in the U.S. and now working at West Kowloon." And I said, "So that's great. What is he doing?" He's an installer. He's installing arts. I said, wow, I thank the father because he's very open-minded, right? Because I think when I graduated with a student art degree, I was too ashamed to tell anyone that I was an art degree because it's like, oh, wow, you are useless because you're doing art. But I think today the generation is different, right? But it's more important that the parents also have to agree to that, because I think we are still very Asian. There's still certain, we think that, the good career, a good paying job must be this and this and that. Is that how the new generation is seeing it?
I would also say that my parents' generation is exactly what Bernard just described. It's so much, when you choose your career, it's so much about, what kind of job you'll get. When I was growing up, and there's a lot of joint ventures, a lot of foreign investment in mainland, so I chose to study English so that I can get a job, maybe in a company somewhere. However, I think that at the time, only the worst students chose art because they couldn't pass the examination to go to. I'm not referring to you, I'm sorry, Bernard. But I would say that the landscape in the arts and culture scene has changed. Back then, you had very limited career choices as an arts graduate. Maybe you work in a magazine doing editorial work or graphic design work. Now, many places, including Hong Kong, with so many new arts and museum venues open, you have a lot of possibilities, new possibilities. We need people specializing in finance because sustainability issues, right? We need to have the ability to generate revenue and make the museum sustainable, make all the, performing arts venue sustainable difficult. We need talents in science because we need conservators, we need scientists to help us to understand art and conserve art. We also need people who have other kind of talents. So I want to encourage people from all industries with all backgrounds to look at new opportunities in the arts and the culture field because it's very different now. So I would also say that for a lot of young people, I think that the first step is probably not just doing art, but also how to make yourself more well-rounded. Because to work in a museum, you need multiple skill sets. So I think that, yes, focus on art, have more interest in art, but really focus on have multiple skills is very important.
Thanks for Bernard for doing my job, being moderating and asking the question, and that was great. But he was also wanted you to share maybe, can you describe a little bit to describe a little bit of the local young talents that you find in your area and see how the young local talents interact with some of the international talents that we've got. Can you describe that a little bit in your area?
Sure. Yeah. This is good. I think one of the reasons why I came to Hong Kong and work here is also I see potential to mentor the next generation of museum professionals because people here are very smart. They're very smart. They are very humble, and they work really hard. And I think you just need somebody to share with them the best museum practices, and they'll learn very, very quickly. So in addition to attracting international talents, we really need to lift up the local young people, give them confidence, give them skill sets. No rocket science. I studied political science, I studied international law, and I can work in a museum, curate shows. It's possible. If you have a passion, if people give you the skill set. So I think this is a very exciting, very encouraging new fields, a lot of new opportunities. On the other hand, I would also say that just as counterpoint to Bernard's very, very good points about other industries, and you are known as a financial leader, you are known as an educational leader, but I hope that Hong Kong should not stay too shy in new development. For example, going back to West Kowloon Culture District, this is a phenomenal development. Despite all the challenges, right? We should do better in telling people our success stories. I think that's very important because a lot of colleagues, when I kind of relocated to Hong Kong, a lot of colleagues and friends sent me, WhatsApp messages, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm perfectly okay. Right. I feel so safe here. This is a wonderful place." But people have misconceptions about this place and the working environment. And we need to do more to create and to maybe restore that positive image of Hong Kong in many industries.
Right, just going the Hong Kong style, I guess, aside from being silent and hardworking, as you said, sometimes too harsh on ourselves, right? Instead of celebrating and telling the good story that we actually have. So collectively, we need to, as you said, really be more uplifting of like what Diana has spoken before. Diana, you also, in your area, you mentioned obviously digital transformation, the ESG, and all these different areas that your bank is looking into. How do you find attracting and local talents or attracting or grooming local talents in that area?
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the question. I think we've got to start from the pipeline. So it's not necessarily at certain pinpointed to certain levels. I think the whole industry, the entire industry, and I've been in this industry for long, I could safely attest to the fact that there are certain labels that are being carried with the industry. A lot of times you think, you've got to have relevant experience. You have to be, working in iBank or certain streams of your business for X number of years before you would be considered. I think we've got to be a bit more open-minded. And in that respect, it should be reciprocating with next generation. People could be changing from one company to another because a lot of the skills actually are transferable. I think we need to recognize and acknowledge that. You could have and you would have certain expertise in different areas, legal, for example, finance. You would have certain expertise, but there are lots of roles and streams of businesses and functions within the financial sector that could be fueled by colleagues with very transferable skill sets. I mean, if you've got a legal background, you could be working for a bank, you could be working for elsewhere. That's why that tug of war always exists, yeah? Because it's not just with competing within the sector, the financial sector. So I think that's one area where we need to be a bit more open-minded, to connect and to think of how we then shape the pipeline of our workforce, how and where we look to recruit and develop talents. I think that's my point number one. Two is, I think, the fact that again, financial sector, because that's my area, has historically been quite male-dominated. Yeah. So the hot topic these days, diversity and inclusion, and people say, you're going to have to set certain targets for gender diversity and whatnot. I think, in all honesty, that is a bit of a very constrained view. I actually see D&I as equal opportunities, because you're actually looking at the meritocracy, who's best to fill a certain position, who's best to be promoted. Now, Hong Kong has made a lot of progress in that respect. We have advocated and we've been promoting diversity, culture, be it ethnicity, be it gender. So our workforce actually has got quite a mosaic of different types of talents. And I think that's something we need to continue to nurture. And allow me to promote a bit for our bank. Our board has got 66% female board directorship. So perhaps it's a reverse challenge we have. But it's not impossible, is what I'm trying to say. So I think we need to think a bit broader and consider very many attributes that we historically wouldn't be thinking along those lines. We'd be thinking you have to have relevant experience, you have to have X number of experience, you have to be, certain, coming from certain discipline or whatnot. So I think that is my second point. And lastly, I think it's really thinking of how the workforce will take shape in not even 10 years, because a lot of the jobs are actually automated right now. So what are we training our next generation for? We've got to actually inject, and I agree absolutely with Bernard, it's not so much a criticism on part of education and whatnot, but we're going to have a more balanced view. We're going to have to be a bit more open-minded in terms of shaping and fostering creativity, innovation, because that's where your future workforce would be. You wouldn't have as many people doing branches role as tellers or contact center, because AI would be doing a lot of that job, right? I mean, I started out as contact center. I was an agent. I was a teller when I was working part-time to pay for my university bill. But I don't think you would actually necessarily be thinking in that respect. Your next generation would be going into those roles. So what are we equipping them with? How are we shaping that workforce going forward? That's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, on your second point about gender diversity, I mean, aside from your board, I think it's also a well-known fact in Hong Kong that a lot of our financial institution CEOs
30-odd% is very advanced, you know, in terms of senior leaders. I mean, yeah, if we look at, is there an absolute number? I go back to my point of equal opportunity.
Yeah, well, maybe that's another good thing about Hong Kong that we need to promote. Talking about diversity, Aaron, obviously with your background, with your cultural heritage, with your business, you know, that is spanned in different international cities and areas. I wanted to get your thoughts on this global talent hub topic today. Because in my framework, even though when we talk about global hub, aside from attracting global talents, you know, part of this is also raising our local talents to become global, standard, basically, right? So that we have this global and local mix and create a lot of opportunities that is of global competitiveness. So I want you to comment, if you will, on some of where we are in terms of our local talents and good things, bad things, and, you know, are we more, sometimes when I was talking to some financial leaders before, they said our talent in Hong Kong, they are actually not just hardworking, sometimes silent, but they are actually very flexible and, you know, problem-oriented. They solve problems. And this is one of the key features that, you know, that you might not be able to find elsewhere in other Asia countries or cities. I wanted to get your thoughts and feedback on that as well.
So one of the most wonderful things about Hong Kong, I think, is its multiculturalism. So it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. We just look at talent as talent is. You could be Chinese, you could be Indian, you could be European, you could be American. It really doesn't matter. And that's quite a magnificent thing about Hong Kong. We've also exported that talent. I mean, if you look at my industry, some of the best hotel companies in the world have come from Hong Kong. If you look at the Peninsula, the Rosewood, the Shangri-La, I could just keep on naming these. Right? The best hotels in London, Paris, New York come from Hong Kong. So we've exported this brand that is Hong Kong. You know, it's a level of service that is distinguished. It's a level of service that's unmatched and unparalleled all around the world. It's a level of qualification and intelligence, and that is, again, the top of the ladder. You know, and it comes from every ethnicity. I mean, growing up in Hong Kong with being Indian, I never felt myself different. You know, everybody would say, I go all around the world and people ask me, so how do you identify yourself? You have a British passport, you're Indian, but you were born in Hong Kong. And I say, there's no question, I'm a Hong Konger, you know, through and through. And then all the other things come later. And I think this is a feeling that every Hong Konger has. We're incredibly proud of the place that we're born in or call home. And I agree with you, we've been very hard on ourselves. I remember before 1997, people would say Singapore is going to take over, Shanghai is going to take over. And then when you look at it with slightly more detail, it would be difficult for Shanghai to take over in those days because there's no convertibility of the renminbi, there's no common law, so companies wouldn't go there. So I think we have to look at ourselves less critically, but with a better eye in showing what our merits are, to be able to promote those merits going forward, that people see Hong Kong as a place that we know it to be, that we see it to be, and if we just need to be able to push that going forward, I would say. Again, I say the best hotel companies in the world come from Hong Kong.
That's an amazing point, because when we talk about opportunities, sometimes we say, well, you know, Hong Kong has so much structural advantages, market opportunities, but really we have to give credit to the Hong Kong talents that actually create that opportunity, be able to actually grasp that opportunity, that otherwise, you know, there can be opportunity. You need someone actually to grab it, and Hong Kong has been doing a good job, be able to actually grab that. So I think, you know, it's time to actually attract foreign talents, yes, but also really to celebrate but also continue to solidify our local talents and embrace them as a hardworking, well-deserved group of people, right, that actually create a lot of opportunities. And Bernard, you also, from your Thai business background, I mean, do you sort of observe the different places on how talents are in various places? If you can comment on that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I think let me also go back to my earlier comments about the messaging, right? Hong Kong message to the world, because we are here, and we think this is what they want. But let's put ourselves in their perspective and see how they see Hong Kong, right? I think. Now, for good reason, I think Hong Kong, because we need to have a good, I think another thing we should really take proud of is we have an amazing check and balance system here. While many in the outside world think that we have no democracy, hey, democracy is not the same as check and balance, right? We have amazing check and balance. Because we have the check and balances, that's why things are not moving as fast as we want to, right? Because it's check and balances. So I think all of the years, when it comes to talent, we need to protect the local talent, right? The local interest. And so everything that we do create bureaucracy. I think that's the problem that we send to the world, right? When people apply for a job in Hong Kong, wow, lengthy application process, this and that, but I don't blame them. Whoever's approving it, hey, they will be blamed if they're not doing a good job, right? Right? The audit department go after them. So I understand why they need to do what they do. But then at the same time, it send that message. It send them, wow, you got to prove this, you got to prove that, this and that. Because that's the comments I got from my friends overseas. It's like, oh, Hong Kong, so difficult. That's the message we always been giving them. But of course, they want Hong Kong so much that even no matter how difficult, they still want it. They will still come, right? Yeah. Well, that's the past. I think today, when everyone is lowering those standards and becoming more and more welcoming, that's why I think in the policy address, there's mentioning of cutting red tapes, right?
Yes.
I think that's important. But I hope that it not just a policy address, I hope it will turn into actual action, that we want to show to the world that if you're good, we want you. But you don't need to prove A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, because I think that's the message. Just like with COVID, right? We have to ask them that, oh, you have to declare this and this and that. And it turns people off, right? If especially when they have choices. Now, if they have no choice, oh, no problem, then they'll fill those out. But when they have choices, that's the problem. So I think, but I just want to make sure you all don't get me wrong, because the medias are here. I don't want them to blame anybody. I'm not blaming the government, because it's a reflection of the people. Because the local group, local interests, they demand their rights, and so that's why we build these in, right? For all good reason. They're all for good reason. But I just think that we are now at such a critical time. We cannot just let the same old, because then we will lose out. I think that's my point.
Actually, could I add to that? One of the most exceptional parts of Hong Kong has been its nimbleness. Right? We can move very quickly. Yes, we have the checks and balances, and we have a bit too much red tape and bureaucracy. We all know that. It takes a while to do things, but we've always been nimble. And what's happened in the last pandemic period is I think we've stopped being nimble. Right? It's been very difficult to move the needle a centimeter here, a centimeter there. We have to regain that nimbleness, because that was Hong Kong's unique advantage.
Okay.
And if I may jump in, I also think agility, the nimbleness is important. Also, we need to reduce a bit of, or remove ourselves from too much of a fear factor. Because we've been very, very cautious across all ends, and that check and balance, the very process-driven in very many ways. Creates a bit of a hurdle and an obstacle. So we tend to sometimes be kind of, for lack of a better word, afraid of our own shadows. So we're going to have to be a bit more, nimble, as well as confident in making decisions, faster decisions. Yeah, that's for everybody here in Hong Kong, whether it be a household, whether it be an employee, an industry, or a corporation. I think that agility and that pace of decision and actions could be ramped up.
Okay.
I might be the only person in this room who loves paperwork. Let me offer some different perspectives. I worked in a quasi-governmental museum in Washington, D.C. called the Smithsonian, which is a giant conglomeration of museums and research centers. And the level of complexity and the level of bureaucracy is no less. Number one. Then, number two is that here I think that we are, as a new museum, we're so much focusing on policy and procedures, which is very, very important. I think that having that awareness of, say, that following the good procedures and due diligence is very important in my field. So I do have a level of appreciation of the check and balance system, as well as I think that if you compare with some of the systems in China, compare some systems in the United States, I think in the museum, our standards are pretty high, and our procedures are very good.
That's great.
Gotta put in my another disclaimer here. I'm not saying that we should do without check and balances. I say check and balance is important. That's why they're there. We just have to be more nimble and that's right. So anyway, just make sure.
Bernard was the chairman of our board. So thank you, Bernard.
And maybe one last question on this floor is, can you share a bit more personal, but it's related to selling Hong Kong? Is if you were to convince local talents to stay in, or attract foreign talents to come to Hong Kong, maybe share one thing about you that you love most about living and having fun or leisure in Hong Kong, or sort of any sort of personal story of why and how and you enjoy Hong Kong. Maybe the most cultural shock with the newest comer, Daisy, maybe you can share with us.
I grew up in mainland, and I spent 17 years in the United States as a student and a museum professional. When I came back to Hong Kong, I would say it evoked so many of my childhood memory. Because many people said, oh, Hong Kong has no Chinese culture. People don't understand Chinese history or culture. It's the reverse. Okay. And people were not aware that actually something in their blood.
One example, one instance.
I mean,
that's so
some people making old crafts in the street, or the tea, the herbal tea. These are things when I was like teenager. Still, you have something in the street. Not these days. In many cities in mainland, I think you have an incredible preservation of the cultural heritage that's in the blood. So I feel so kind of a homecoming feeling. That was very heartwarming. The other thing I think that I really enjoy in Hong Kong is we have the best museum audience here.
Oh.
So yes. I know there's a lot of criticism. Oh, people don't understand the museum. They don't appreciate this and that. It's the reverse, because just give you an example. I was observing my museum visitors. The mother was taking picture using her cell phone of every label I wrote. And read out loud to her kid. I have never seen. Maybe it's your wife. I don't know, Stephen. But I have never seen such serious museum goer anywhere in the world. When people care what you are working on, when you have appreciating audience, how can you ask for more? And I think we can make...
that's what I was going to say.
I receive daily WhatsApp from my director, Louis Ng. People say, oh, you have a typo. Maybe you can change this word a little bit. All the constructive criticism, people really care about what you do. And I think that makes so much difference. And we also know our work is appreciated, and we can work even better here.
No, I learned so much from when I had the chance as a tour group from Let's Go and be able to listen to your explanation. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm not sure I'm a good museum goer, but I'm just it's just fascinating of what is out there. Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, I think I was away from Hong Kong. I went to school in Canada, worked there for a couple of years, and the first instant I got a chance, I returned to Hong Kong. I grew up here till I was 13, 14, and not a doubt, I wanted to come back. I have been away for 10 years plus, but the heart belongs here because of the buzz Because I've always liked, I mean, I've traveled to different places and it's nice to be, touring the world. But the buzz in Hong Kong is what attracts me. It's almost like keeping you going every day, and the energy and the looking forward, that forward-looking appetite, that strive for excellence. I do agree. We need to re-energize now. I think we need the qualities are here, but we need to re-energize. And we also need to be a bit more progressive in our thoughts. But I still say, if I were to make that decision right now, if I had that chance again, if I were young again, I would. I don't think my mum would like that because she's still in Toronto, but I would. I definitely would.
Thank you. Aaron?
So I really enjoy the fact that in Hong Kong you have the city, the beaches and the mountains within 10 minutes of each other. The weather changes and everybody's hiking up in the mountains. One of the most wonderful things that I enjoy is dropping my children to school too early in Hong Kong, but immediately from the school I go hiking.
Really?
And it's quite wonderful. I mean, this evening I'll be playing tennis in this spectacular weather. Everything is accessible. Everything is quick. You can do 10 things a day in Hong Kong.
Yep.
In Thailand, you can do 3, maybe. Maybe. In London, maybe you can manage 5, but certainly 4 is doable. In Hong Kong, it's 10. Okay. And that's wonderful, I think.
Awesome. That's awesome. For that, is it 3?
Depends if you are stuck in depending if it's whether pouring rain or not. Pouring rain is probably 2, right? Because you can't even get out of the parking lot. No, I agree with everyone, every comment make. I think we are where we are, right? In fact, we used to be. I think the world see us as one of the best places, right? One of the most important IFC in Asia. But unfortunately, due to COVID and the social unrest, we lost that, right? When I say we lost it, we didn't lose it. It's still here, but that's not how the rest of the world see us. Yeah. So it's now how we're going to bring that message back to the world that hey, we are still who we are. Yeah. I think the problem is because after the unrest and then of course it's somewhat the lockdown, so the rest of the world didn't get a chance to see where we are. They didn't see our museum. Our 2 museums were open during COVID. So they have no idea we have these facilities, amazing facilities, but so they need to come back and see it. But the thing is, we need to also tell better stories. Why I keep repeating this message I said, now that with our chief executive pushing this talent quest, I think it's a great message to the world, right? So it's about messaging. So but then we still need to invite people back because it's no point just we saying it, right? They have to come and see it for themselves. Once they're here, they were convinced. Right? They're convinced, but so we're still not quite there yet. But so I'm actually, I am somewhat very convinced because sooner or later, they will come. But it's a little lag time. But I think we still need to address what I said earlier, or we all said earlier about the mismatch of the skill set in Hong Kong. I think locally we need to do that because we don't also, by the way, when we talk about messaging, it's very important we also give the message that we don't just want foreign talent, right? We also need to preserve and upskill our local talent. That will be a very wrong message, and we just keep talking about foreign talent. But of course, in the policy address, I think that's important. But I think the how do we help the upskill and reskill our local talents is equally important. So it's all about messaging, and that's why I think the purpose of this forum. Of course, we're not. Everyone that comes here understand that already, but we need that message to keep repeating. Especially, I know for some reason, I always think our biggest hurdle are the parents themselves, right? Me and many others. I think the parents themselves also need to understand. So why we all why we all agree, but yet at the same time, my child, I want my child to do this and do that. I think we as a parents need to also let go. Whatever that they think is what job is about, right? The skill is about. I think if we all collectively are more open-minded, and they said, we are, and this day everyone talk about crossover, fusions, and so to your point, right? I'm not even sure because I'm a mentor for many students, right? And many of them always ask, what career should they go into? Honestly, I have no idea. Because, I mean, I know what the career today, I don't know what career 10, 20 years from now. Like you said, I mean, my business, my company may be obsolete in 15 years' time, right? Who knows? So I'm not even sure what skill set are we preparing for them down the road. So, but instead of saying what specific skill set, they should be very broad and multi-skills and so on. Well, of course, unless you want to be a doctor, then you need to have certain skill set. But I think Hong Kong needs to prepare our next generations to prepare for that continuous change. Because I think Hong Kong is always going to be in the forefront. So the agility that you mentioned, Diana, I think that's so important. I think that the key that we need to be able to adapt and change constantly to stay ahead.
You do a good job just even rounding up what we just discussed. That's amazing. This taking over my job, but let me just invite the floor to join our conversation with questions or introduce yourself a little bit. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mo, and Arun, happy Diwali to you, first of all. Show them your strings on your hand, Yeah, so we're both Indians, and, Hong Kong is extremely tolerant, a lovely, lovely place, and, that's a selling point for Hong Kong. And Bernie, your Palace Museum is out of this world. It's just absolutely amazing, and Vienna Philharmonic was here a few days ago. So there's so much, there's so much on the soft side that we can sell Hong Kong. Hong Kong is doing so great and wonderful. Diversity, culture, etc. That's the soft part. The hard part is this. In Hong Kong, for example, education, when you look at physics, actually is not ranked really high. That's part of STEM. But actually in China, Tsinghua is ranked number 9. So I was just thinking that, at some point, you could actually sort of bundle or package programs in which we can take good parts of Hong Kong and China together. So, for example, Hong Kong doesn't have a particle accelerator. There's a particle accelerator in Tokyo. So we might be doing some sort of tripartite program. So that's an idea that we really should be making it interesting for parents to want their children to stay in Hong Kong because they'll be co-branded sort of university degrees. The second point I wanted to add as a policy is that I think you all know that recently the China taxman has sort of started cracking down, so that previously there might have been a tax break working for Hong Kong if you are a Chinese citizen. And right now, what could really happen is that maybe there could be some sort of quota negotiated with the tax authorities in China, whereby Chinese folks coming into Hong Kong could actually just pay local tax. Now think about it. If I am American and I have to pay 40-50% tax worldwide, it doesn't matter where I am. The attraction will be the softer side, right? But if I can actually convince the people from the mainland, which is extremely talented, to come to Hong Kong, because I can give them some sort of tax break, and it's a controlled tax break. So there is a bottom line for all the parties. That's something from a policy perspective that could be negotiable with China. So those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Okay. Any thoughts, comments, or maybe first point about sort of the joint education to put together the resources in Hong Kong and mainland universities in GBA or even in Beijing in arts or in elsewhere joint forces. I know Diana, you also sit on the UGC before. So any thoughts or comments on that?
Happy to respond to your first comment. It's an excellent idea. Hong Kong Palace Museum is a partnership between the West Kowloon Cultural District and our major partner, the Palace Museum in Beijing, known as the Forbidden City. So it's a very strategic decision to create that museum precisely because of the benefit you just mentioned. Just give you a very concrete example. Our most important and most expensive exhibition is to feature 35 national treasures from the Forbidden City, and that show was phenomenal and created a lot of stir. We co-published with the Palace Museum team 2 books, same contents. However, they are responsible for the Chinese language version, which they distribute on the mainland market. And we create the English language version and we distribute internationally. So it's a win-win situation, and both sides appreciate so much. And also we basically, we have a very small publishing team, 4 people. They have an army of publishing teammates, over 100. So they can do things very, very quickly. So the first rush to the finish line, and we're still working on the English language version. However, we'll finish.
Diana?
Yeah, probably, Stephen, would be better positioned to answer that question. But I think from my perspective, I do sit on FSDC and UGC, and connecting the dots, the industry, the financial sector already works very closely cross-border with different institutions in the world when it comes to developing talents and programs. However, I do think if we were to advocate and externalize, now we're energized again, in the academic space, certainly. Even if we start with research, I wouldn't be equipped to answer questions on the science field. But I think even if it's research of any sort, right, that's where we could actually connect better and more with universities from other parts, other regions, because that's where, again, you have agnostic skill sets, but you can have different perspective, actually really deep diving into certain, and perhaps understanding Hong Kong better, where we are better. And in that sense, I think that's an area that we could connect, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, when we take 1 or 2 more questions. Here. This lady.
Hi, thank you for all the panelists' informative and insightful sharings, and very encouraging. This question is to Mr. Chen. As all we know that you just mentioned, right? We should be more proactive, and then say to the world that we want good people to come to Hong Kong. So as all we know that GBA is the world's, ever since the first megapolis in the world. So for sure is a driving force for the economy in the region. So what would you say in one line to, all these good people, leveraging on the Greater Bay Area potential? Thank you.
One line, okay. I was just in Singapore last week. Our board of governors of our Hong Kong Foundation, Alan Siemens here, he was also there, Singapore, promoting Hong Kong. We are all out there now helping to tell that story. I'm sure every one of us, I'm sure you too, every one of you. And I was defending Hong Kong, right? To your point. So it's not going to be one line. But anyway, so my answer, what else more can we excite them? And my answer to that is, because in fact the question is not so much about Hong Kong, it's about China, right? Increasingly, the story of Hong Kong is also the story of China. So, and given what happened, the markets, stock markets, interest in that, right? So everyone has doubt about the future. So my answer to that is, well, I'm not going to comment about the current political this and that, right? But if you look at China in the long run, medium to long run, with a fast-growing 400 million middle class and rising, how wrong can that be? When you have this rising 400 million Chinese middle class, what do they want? They want better access to healthcare, right? Better access to education for the next generation, living standard, not to mention jobs. So the demand is so huge. And Hong Kong serves a major purpose for that too. Not onshore, we serve the offshore side of things, right? So how wrong can that be? So I am so confident of our future. But let's not talk about the next couple months. Is it going to be 0, 3, 0, this, and so that? Yes, we're still a bit rough today. But if we talk about investing, right? I'm sure many of you here invest. It's not for tomorrow, right? We're investing, everything that we invest is hotel, right? Hey, it's not about tomorrow. It's about, 15 years, 10, 15 years on. Come on. So I am still remain very confident about the future. So I think, so when I talk about Hong Kong, I don't just talk about Hong Kong, I bring in the whole country to this topic of 400 million, but of course the Greater Bay Area is 70, but let's not talk about even that 70 or 300, is that rising middle class, the purchasing powers of these young family, middle class family in China, and how are they different from our middle class families? Not much. I mean, I'm not here to say, but if you ask Daisy, right, the middle class family in China, how are they different from Hong Kong family? We are all looking for the same thing, better access to culture and arts, right? Because it's not just about getting a job anymore. They want more than a job. For us to attract global talent, it's not about the job. Of course, you need the job, but then you also need all the other things. Because when they bring the family here, they want their family to access to education, quality of life, arts and cultures, and you name it. So I think that's why I am very bullish.
Now time is running out, but maybe we take one short question. No, there's no question from the media side. Okay, so we take a, okay.
Thank you very much, and I'm David Graham from the British Chamber. Thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. Maybe I could just ask two questions really about international talent. And the first question is really, as I see it, Hong Kong's success going forward is going to be an amalgamation of homegrown talent with the right skill set, increasingly some mainland talent because we're connected to the mainland. We need that talent as we look forward from a business perspective. But we also need that international talent. It's been a key aspect of Hong Kong in the past, and it needs to be in the mix going forward. Listening to the panel, and I know this from my own experience, over the last couple of years, and maybe for the next year or going forward, it's going to be hard to attract international talent. And people are going to have to make tactical decisions as to how they fill those slots in. And do we run the risk that over the short term, we become less attractive to international talent because we're filling the slots that otherwise might have gone to international talent with some local talent? Not saying that's the wrong talent necessarily, but for the future of Hong Kong, it may imbalance where we end up. The second question, just following on from that, there's been a lot of talk, and I think we all agree that we need to be out promoting Hong Kong. I mean, the people in this room all know the advantages of living in Hong Kong because we live here and we've enjoyed it. But Hong Kong has undoubtedly taken a huge bashing internationally, and we need to rebuild that reputation. And a lot of the people who've left, they haven't gone back with a good message about Hong Kong. So I think, Bernard, you've talked about you were down in Singapore, you were promoting Hong Kong, and clearly as a chamber we do a lot to promote Hong Kong. But do we need a more systematic approach to promoting Hong Kong overseas, rather than a somewhat ad hoc way of individually promoting Hong Kong? Do we need schemes? Do we need to be in front of the universities in the UK and America and elsewhere? Do we need to be in front of government, even in front of these countries? Because it seems at the moment that we're all agreed we need to promote Hong Kong, but we don't seem to have a plan at the moment.
Yeah, given time, we really have to be short.
I'll take the second one. Maybe Aaron or others can take the first. In fact, thank you for actually helping me to round up this discussion here. I think the private sector needs to take the initiative. Now, obviously, government has a role to promote, but I think more importantly, the private sector, because we can have a better chance to convince our counterparts. So, but coordination, I agree, maybe in fact is our Hong Kong Foundation. We should be that, I'm not saying that we will be coordinating, but we will provide you the materials needed to promote Hong Kong. Because honestly, I mean, wasn't because I prepared for this this morning session, I may not have all the statistics myself. So I think somebody has to coordinate it, coordinating all this thing, and the private sector. So private sector needs to take the drive. I agree. We'll work on it. But
So to the first question, I think talent, whichever way it comes, whether it's local or foreign or mainland. You just have to get the best level. And I think we should not say, oh, at the moment we can't get foreign talent, so therefore our local talent should replace. It's the best person regardless of ethnicity. So I think that, and actually in answer to, your second question, in 1996 or 1997 actually, there was a foundation called the Better Hong Kong Foundation, which was set up actually in directly because there was a Time magazine article entitled "The Death of China." The Death of Hong Kong. And we traveled to Washington and different places around the world, trying to decline that statement and show why Hong Kong was still vibrant. And I think a consolidated approach, whether it's through the private sector individually and through the public sectors and NGOs, I think we have to hit it from all levels.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to thank the panelists and also give a round of applause to our panelists for distinguished discussions, and give back to Yolanda.
Thank you, Dr. Wong, and a big thank you to all of our panelists. I also take this opportunity to thank Hong Kong Land as our venue sponsor for today. Lastly, thank you all for joining us today, and this concludes our Insight Forum Hong Kong Way Forward series. If you are interested in the previous Insight Forum in this series, please visit our Hong Kong Foundation's YouTube channel. Our signature event, the 4th Innotech Expo, will be held at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center from December 12th to December 22nd. The exhibition will highlight China's aspiration and achievements in science and technology, while also saluting Hong Kong's own scientific achievements over the last 25 years. We very much hope to see you all there. Finally, I wish you all good health, thank you, and goodbye.